G'day folks, welcome to ZF47. It is Friday, the 1st of December 2023, so it's the first day of summer. As you can see, we're still progressing on this engine bay. This morning I've taken down the condenser from the ZG, which I've already fitted to this car and it fits perfectly. But I've had to take it down to an aircon joint to have a couple of the fittings sort of realigned and changed so that they suit the ProFlow hosing type gear and plumbing gear, because I'm going to do the whole job in the ProFlow. These are all ProFlow fittings here, and yes, I'll do the whole job with those sort of fittings. It's very smart, very stylish, all steel braided. This is the power steering reservoir, which I had mounted up in here, but I was really unhappy with the hoses. I had them running down in through the inner guard here, and they were like really kinked, sharply kinked, and it was metal against rubber, and I was thinking, oh my god, that's going to cut through in no time flat. And it looked pretty ordinary, and it was creating a lot of resistance and a lot of pressure on this on that mounting bracket. So I decided to go down to Speed Pro and Dandenong, my new church, and I'm going to rejig it. I was using rubber hose from here down through there to the power steering pump, and now it's all steel braided, so it's going to look a lot nicer. So anyway, I thought, well, I might as well make a video of how to use this ProFlow gear. The fittings and the hose and the connectors are rated to about 3,500 psi. So I mean, this is a low pressure line. This is a low pressure reservoir. So you can sort of rest assured you can use it for low pressure and high pressure sort of applications. So yeah, anyway, I'll take you down the back and we'll start playing with this. Yeah, so that was the rubber hose that I had running. It's horrible, it's hard, it's bloody industrial sort of copper type fitting. So just everything was wrong about it. And that was the line off the pump, which was a right angle, and that was too aggressive, and so there was a curve in the hose. So you'll see how I've gone about. I should have filmed it before I took it off, but well, I think I did, but on ZF46. But so the first thing is I just want to thread seal on these two adapters down here. When you're joining a ProFlow fitting to a ProFlow fitting, you don't need to use thread sealant, and in fact I actually suggest you don't, because it's not the best stuff. It's pretty aggressive. So my sort of colour scheme is black fittings with silver steel braided hose, stainless. So I'll try and keep that thing going all the way through the plumbing. So CVF give you a kit. So there's a baffle inside this tank, and I think it's on this side here. You can actually put the baffle on any side. It's actually removable. So the baffle's on that side down the radiator side. But it's all adjustable. You can spin that cylinder so it's on the passenger side, or spin it so it's on the driver's side. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make up a line to the return line, or to the pump. I've just got to dummy fit this quickly. This is the return hose from the power steering box. The return hose to the pump goes through that hole. Now that hole was there from the factory, but I expanded it a little bit. I was hoping to be able to fit the fitting through there, make it up and then fit it through, but it's not going to fit. So I'm going to actually have to run the hose out here and make it on the other side of the engine bay. But to start with, we need to convert this rubber hose to steel braided hose by means of this fitting here. Okay, oops, put a hose clamp, pretty tricky little hose clamp, say. Put a hose clamp on there first, then the barb, it's going to be there, so I'm going to try and roll that around so that you don't see they can't see there's a hose clamp. I don't like hose clamps. Yeah, so that will go there, and run up to our reservoir. So that's the radiator support panel. First thing I have to do is send these two lines out through the inner front guard on a slight angle, so they come out. So I bought these, I think they're 30 degrees, I can't remember. So the way it's done is you've got this little collar. So you use tape to cut your line because it wants to flare out and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So I'm going to slide that on through there. Really tricky. Once that bloody mesh around the edges starts to flare out, she doesn't want to stop. Here we go. Okay, so once you've got your collars on, then you've got to pull this stainless mesh back, and you have to slide this collar over the plastic hose. Now inside that collar there's like a stopper, so you've got to tap that on all the way home onto the plastic, and there's like a retainer in there. Tap it all the way on, and so I can see the black hose inside there. It's lipped. Now you've got all of this frayed mesh, and that just pulls onto that. So once you've got your collar, your little collar in place, and you pull this forward, then you slide fitting into the inside of the core of the hose, and you tighten that down. Right, step one. Okay, so I was having a big problem down in here. Okay, with the rubber, the original setup I had rubber hoses, and they were kinked seriously on that metal edge. It just wasn't going to last. So I'm really happy with that. That looks great. Now, so they come out the other side to this point here. What I need to do at this point is I need to put an elbow on there, a 90-degree elbow, because one needs to connect to that and one needs to go through there, through that hole onto the power steering pump. This stuff looks fantastic, but it's fucking hideously expensive. You would think there'd be like a 90-degree, which is a really simple setup, you know, for $20 or $30 for a 90-degree bend. The only way you can do those 90s is by using two sets of fittings. That 90-degree bend has just cost me $120. I'll show it to you in a minute. So we don't want that elbow actually hitting on the steel. Well, we want to avoid that. So I'm thinking we need to cut that around about there. And then the back one is really quite simple. It just joins up to this one here. Stuff smells pretty funky when you cut it. Yeah, you gotta flatten all that frayed wire down, because she just wants to just like into a big bouquet of sharpness. Tap that home. Slide in the elbow. Before we nip her up, we've got to get it in the right position. So that one's good. Now we've got to do this one. So it's all speed flow stuff. It's not Pro Flow. Apparently Pro Flow's cheap Chinese rubbish. You know that you're not going to have any trouble when you don't prick your thumb doing this. If you prick your thumb, you're going to have trouble. So back to the car. So just to try and find a length, rather than using string, which isn't sort of rigid, I'm using a piece of steel fixers wire. So we're going from there around to there. I've got to put a rubber grommet on the hose before I connect it all up. Okay. That's good. So I've got this set up. This is really tricky because the fittings want to rotate as you're tightening them off, and they have to be in exactly the right position. So the bottle, all of those are in exactly the right position to mount the bottle now. So I can mount that and I can do the rest from underneath. Wow, so that was the result I was after. After all of that time and money, the return line to the power steering pump from the reservoir is in. And I managed to get a rubber grommet on there, down the bottom. So it really tidies it right up. This is it from the inside. Just got to zip tie those two together there. And they come, of course, as you've seen, come up through there. But it's a good little result. Just come back from collecting the condenser, and I had to have had it modified. That's a -8 fitting, and normally on AC it's -8 and -6, and that fitting there was a -7, and it's very rare. It's not often used. Sometimes the Chrysler's use it, but I don't know why it's on this one, but it's standard. So I'd have this elbow made up so that it can pop through the firewall at this point here, and also be compatible. That's a -6 and that's a -8. So that's a -6 fitting, so it'll be compatible with the receiver dryer that I've got ordered. The receiver dryer is going to go on the inner guard there, and so it's all compatible now. Whereas there was nothing I could do. I had to send it away. They had to make up this fitting, which it's quite beautifully made. So, but still an old condenser. Anyway, so we can put this in now, and what this does, it actually gets gets the whole AC system inside the engine bay, which is really what I was hoping to do, because I can't assemble the rest of the car. Can't put the headlights in, the grille, the front guards, indicators. Can't do anything until this is in, because it just means I have to take everything off again. So I didn't want to do that. So anyway, so we'll pop this on. That line which goes to the receiver dryer is sharing the headlight wiring hole. This line here, the line to the pump, I drilled that yesterday, and just clears the bottom, which is in behind there, which is good. So I'm going to run it up under the guard there. I've just drilled a hole through the bracket so it doesn't look dodgy from the inside. If you can see that. So yeah, that's where the wire comes, through the bracket. And just clips straight on there. So when you look back, you can't really see. You can see that wire, which is a bit ugly, but it's part of the build. But yeah, there's no wire running from here across there and down to the horns. It's just clean, and I'm running it up through here, so just through that point there, along the inside of there, down and out through the bracket. I'm not going to bother putting seam sealer around there. I mean, hell, what's the point? It's all painted, so it's not going to rust. Just going to clean up the thread. It's got a lot of spray build up around these. Now just got to insert the arm onto the back of the motor and pop that clip on. I've forgotten how this goes. I know they screwed there. Not sure why old mate didn't put this trim on when he put the windscreen in, because it's clearly got to go on now. Can't really remember, but I think these go here. Because I've got rid of the pump on the wiper motor, I've elected to go for a washer bottle with a little electric pump on there. So I've had to run the water line up through. I've run it around through there. Well, I will stick it down, make it look nice somehow. But what I chose to do was I chose to run it through this seal. It doesn't tend to get squashed, I've checked. So I've run the hose up through the opening in the seal. I punched a hole in there in the seal and ran a little piece of hose out through there. It's got a bit of a kink in it, but that's not a bad thing because water still flows through it, I'm sure, to this passenger side washer. But because the driver's side's further away, there's less resistance on that line. There's a little bit of resistance in that corner, so that's going to be a helpful thing, I'm sure. And on this side here, I've run it out of the... I should have done the same and punched a hole in the seal, but I didn't. I forgot, and it was too late. In that section there, I put a T-piece, and I slid the T-piece... I assembled the hose, and I slid the T-piece through there. It fitted. And I stopped it at that point there. So that's how I managed to join that piece of hose on. And this one here, really simple, straight out, a little bit of a curve on it, straight onto that windscreen washer there. My workbench is getting increasingly filthy. I'll have to stop at some point and give her a clean. Just bought some new wiper blades. A little bit of cutting compound. That little clip is sort of a bit tricky, but it's common sense. All you do is slide it on back, you know, a couple of inches. Then you attach your little arm so that the top or the head of the stud is sticking up. And then you just slide it up towards the stud. Then you actually have to lift the tab up and keep sliding. So I used a little spike there. Lift the tab up and keep sliding it over, and then the tab locks down over the top. So it's pretty straightforward. So the wipers are installed. I need a new set of drill bits. Every drill bit that I use breaks in time, so I'll put a bit of silicone in there anyway. Well, that wasn't so successful. These are brand new, of course, aftermarket. It's using the old speed nuts because the new ones are really too tight. The post on underneath the 1 snapped off. Push silicone into the hole around the remaining bit of the post just to lock it in place. The speed nut on underneath the 3 has gone all the way up, but it's just spinning, so I can't get it dead tight. So anyway, if it falls off or starts to move around, I'll just whip it off and put another one on and use double-sided tape next time. Yeah, the passenger side went on heaps better. I did it on the workbench. Still broke one post. The front post broke. This time I put some double-sided tape underneath the between the posts, and it just sat proud of the actual bottom of the badge, so it's made contact with the paint, which is great. And I got one speed nut on, and I used one of the old ones, and that just zipped right up nice and tight. So that one we'll never have problems with. Driver's side we could potentially have problems with getting. It could start to vibrate loose or something. It's just a bit of a play around while I'm putting the guards on. I had to go up to the ZG and steal a heap of these little clips because they tend to rust out around here. So it's the gift that keeps giving, that little old car. So it turns out this bumper, although it was in pretty good nick, it was the original one off the car, I think. We've got a clash there with the guard, and it sits out bloody miles. I don't know if you can see that gap there. That's not a straight gap. This is how it should look. Okay, so it should sit proud about centimetre all the way around. And sit quite snugly around the profile of the indicator. This one didn't. Had a monstrous gap in there, and there's two things at play here. Firstly, it's my panel beating skills, I don't know, but definitely the bumper's misshapen. I've been trying to adjust it across a little bit to alleviate that, but still I've got to get it sort of pushed further back toward that gap's too big. So yeah, I'm going to clean this. I've got another bumper. This is a good bumper. There's no major scratches in it and no dents. The override is a mint. But I've got one here. I've got about 3 or 4 of these things. So this one here looks pretty savage underneath, but on the top there's no major rust. There's no dents, you know. So I'm going to use this one. Oh, I've got a little bit of scratchiness at the corner there, but I'll just polish the best I can. We'll see what we come up with. The chrome's not real good. I think that's probably why I opted to use the other one. This one hopefully solves that problem. Okay, so that's the passenger side. It's all looking good. So that's the driver's side. Look at that gap. That was what was giving me the problems. It's right out of shape. It's probably bent. I'm just hoping that this one fits better. Ah, it does. Yeah, you can see it a mile off. Just that part there. Yeah, this is gonna work. So here's more telltale signs of that little accident that this car had. I thought I'd sort of got everything, but this rusty bracket was the one off this replacement bumper. This black one, which I've painted up and cleaned up, is damaged. Don't know if you can see that edge there. That's nice and straight. Here it's all curved, and that tab is in a different location to that tab, so it's been bent in as well. So the whole thing's knackered. I mean, you could straighten that out and dick around with it. I'm just going to put the undamaged one on. Hi folks, it's Sunday, December the 17th, so a few days before Christmas, 2023. Phil at ProGen has beautifully crafted these fittings which will allow me to adapt the speed flow system to the original system. So that's from the That's the expansion valve, and he's also adapted the condenser fittings. The pump fittings are all A-OK. So this expansion valve, I've just got to get some O-rings for it, some of the air conditioning style O-rings, and then I can start on my merry way with my hosing. Look, I feel really stink about this because I get hundreds of people chatting to me on the group, but I'm the sort of guy that if I don't meet somebody in person and put a face to a name, I forget names and stuff, and everybody's YouTube names are like anagrams or whatever they're called. Anyways, so this guy is called, his name is Mr. Boo, or B-O, Mr. Mr. Boo. I believe I remember, look, see, this is the problem when you don't actually speak to somebody face to face. I think he had like a truck, like an F-150 or a Chevy truck, and a couple of old cars. He's old school, and just the most amazing guy though. And you know, he speaks to me monthly or whenever I do the videos, you know, just calls in and says hi. Now he did tell me his name way back early in the piece. I forget it, and I feel so embarrassed because I know you're watching, Mr. Boo. But look, I've got to say thank you so much for your advice. It's just amazing. This morning I basically copied and pasted all of the information that you've given me over the last 5 emails into a Word document, and I've got 3 pages of information there. Yeah, but I've got to thank you so much, mate, because you've given me a great understanding of the overall system, how it works, and also I still haven't got my head around how to make the controls on the dash communicate with the pump, with everything, and that, you know, the pump communicating with the fan, and I know there's a lot there that you've given me. One of the things you did give me was cleanliness is next to godliness with an AC system. That's why I was actually recommended to buy a new expansion valve to keep everything clean. You did suggest washing out the condenser with acetone, which I'm doing right at the moment. It's full of acetone. I should have taken it back out, but just to be honest, I couldn't be bothered. I just used hoses. It's full of acetone at the moment, and just to eat away at the plaque, you know, 50 years of, you know, the old rubber from the insides of the hoses and stuff. This is, you know, it's common sense that hoses break down from the inside as well. And we don't want to destroy a brand new pump. So I'm just soaking that condenser internally with the acetone. The other good thing about it was I was able now, because I didn't know if that condenser leaked or not, but having it full of acetone, I've been able to inspect it and check for drips and dribbles. Nothing. So we know it's sealed, which is a great thing. So I'm just tipping in a little bit of that, just topping it up with acetone, letting it run out that hose there. So that's the lowest point, which is, you know, 100 mil higher than the actual condenser. So I know that the condenser is completely full and the hoses are full to there. I'm just taking the time with it and just, you know, pouring, you know, about a cup, 250 mil every 3 or 4 minutes, just to keep it flowing through. And once I run out of acetone, I've got 4 litres. I'll then drain the compressor of water, make sure it's dry air, and I'll just blow the system out and tape it off with electrical tape, which was recommended. All I want is the system to be sealed and gassed with oil. So this is the other thing I learned. There is oil in the system to lubricate the pump. Phil from ProGen has given me a number for a guy in Somerville, which is, you know, pretty close, just down the road. And he said he's the southeastern wizard, you know. I don't know who, I can't remember his name yet, but he's the man. So he will top the system with oil, he'll evacuate it, and then gas it. Once I get all the hoses connected. But once it's gassed, I'll go around all the fittings with soapy water and just check it for leaks. And hopefully we don't have any. Because we're not using crimped hoses, we're using the olive style fitting. Anyway, look, I'll leave you to it. When I first started doing it, I was getting sort of a tarnished coloured liquid running through. Now it's running clear, so I'm hoping that that's sort of got the worst of it. So I might just disconnect the funnel now and just squirt the whole system out with air and taper off. Righto, so I took that off just to see if Speedflow had a little bit more attractive configuration, but they don't. They have a billet filter. This is a petrol filter, the fuel filter, but it's still attached with clamps. So I just didn't like all the scruffiness of the clamps, but there's no choice. So I'm just going to pop that back on. One thing I was waiting for was the O-rings for the expansion valve, and I needed to change a couple of fittings over. I took one of those back. I had two of those. I only needed one. That's for the 10mm internal diameter hose. So I only needed one because the hose actually bends beautifully underneath the harmonic balancer. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this on in its final position. There's a couple of O-rings. I think they're what are they? 12mm outside diameter. So they just gave me an assortment of O-rings. These are all special air conditioning type ones. I had to make a spanner out of an old 19mm. I had to grind that open so that it fitted exactly onto the back of that those fittings, and I had to shorten it so I could do it up. It works really, really well. From the receiver dryer to the expansion valve, there's this hose here that I've made up. I've put the service port in a position where I can access it. This fitting here, which is an elbow, I don't like it. I'm not happy with it because there's movement in the elbow. Okay, now the elbow is set so it can rotate. There is an O-ring in there, but there's a lot of movement in that fitting. And I took it back to the guys at Speed Pro in Dandenong, and he says, no, it'll work, but I just don't like that movement. The Freon gas is a really, really tiny molecule. It's smaller than water. And movement, I don't like it. That fitting's done up tight, and I just don't like that amount of movement. Anyway, they assure me it's okay, so I have to trust them. Through this whole process of researching the plumbing for AC, one of the hurdles I've constantly been coming up against is right angle bends, okay, like elbows. You would have thought the most common sense part, this receives a hose. You can put a hose on this end. Okay, it's just an elbow. You can receive a hose on this end. You've got your O-ring olive. There's an O-ring inside that olive. So that's just a simple piece, okay? And so your hose goes in there, your olive goes underneath the braiding, and you crimp it up. Now, you would have thought it's pretty easy to manufacture that on that side as well, but they don't do it. They don't do it. So the only way that you can put so that'd be quite a clean, attractive bend, right? The only way that you can do this with their parts is that's a hose fitting, and this is a fitting for a fitting. if you catch my drift. So the only way you can turn a corner, a 90-degree corner, is to buy 3 pieces. Okay, you need to buy this piece, which is identical to that. Okay, so you've got your olive inside there with your O-ring. So you've got to buy that. Okay, now that needs to bolt to that. So they sell you this, which is a very, very ugly option. So that bolts to that, and that bolts to that. And it's not even the same length. So for you to turn a 90-degree corner, that is what you're left with. Instead of just having that there, and that'd be a very small, quite attractive corner, you have to purchase that. So that's 3 pieces. And each piece is about $40. That's probably 40, that's probably 45, and that's probably 30. So there's $100, basically $100 there, to turn a corner, when it could have been done with 1 piece. If that had been there as well, simple. I mean, my God, I don't know who designs this stuff. Anyway, so I don't want that big lump of yuck sitting right there, so I'm going to actually send it down. Now, this hose here is the large one off the pump, so this would be the low pressure, I'd say. The low pressure is large, high pressure is small. I want that to be sitting around about there. So now what I have to do is get my Sharpie out. I'll take that off. Now, at the top of that olive is where the hose will actually finish. So I need to, that's going to be sitting in between those two. But I want it about that height there. So that's the height I cut. That's where I cut. I don't know if you can see that because it's probably disappeared out of view. I'll take you underneath and actually show you where I'm running it. Okay, so the large one runs off the pump there. It runs straight down towards the transmission cooler lines, but it sits under here beautifully. It just curves so nicely underneath that harmonic balancer. So that's the that's the transmission cooler lines. So I'll clamp that there. Under here, I run it between the lower radiator hose and the fuel filter. So it's just going to run up, there's a little gap there. Now I'm probably going to zip tie that line to the lower radiator hose just to stop it from stopping any abrasion. And try and keep it away from the fuel line because we don't want it rubbing on the fuel line. Don't mind it rubbing on the water, but it won't rub on the water because it'll be zip tied up against it. And then we send it straight up through to where I showed you. But it's nice. It's bloody. It's got a nice arc around the bottom of the harmonic balancer. I don't know if you can see that. It's not going to move forward or back because it's quite a rigid hose. That's brilliant. I'm very happy with that. Because that's a Teflon deburt on the inside. Just want to take all that fluffiness off. Because you don't want this stuff floating around in your aircon system. It'll get to your pump and it'll kill your pump. There's probably a tool for this. Now I know all that stuff's falling down inside my hose. Next thing you do, you get your air hose. And you blow anything out that's fallen into that hose. Just to make sure that there's no foreign bodies floating around inside there. And you just separate them. And once you start, it'll get easier. And you've got to get it a good 3 or 4 mil back. So that's nicely flared there. Next thing, the olive goes on that way, onto the Teflon. And you've got a green O-ring in there. That has to seat right at the very end of the Teflon. Now you can actually see down the inside we're about 2 mil away. So I just give it a little bit of gentle persuasion with a rubber mallet. It's beautiful. So that's the green O-ring is seated right against the Teflon, and it's located in it. You want to check that because sometimes when you slide the fitting off, when you slide the olive off for the first time, it unseats that green O-ring, and if it's not seated correctly, you've got a leak. So the very next thing from there is you put your fitting in, and that has to slide all the way through that O-ring into the Teflon and all the way home. At the top of the olive and the thread actually meeting at that point. Now you're good to slide your fastening collar over. So I had to put it in the vise because there's that much resistance from the flared outer. I couldn't start the thread, so now that fitting is probably the best I've done. That won't leak. The next part to go on is this horrible thing, and it's got a tapered edge which seals onto an O-ring inside there. Now I have to dummy fit the whole thing, Okay, now so I've got this in its location, so we need a hose from there to the expansion valve, but first thing we need to put on the fitting for the service port. I'm just going to dummy fit that because all I'm trying to do at the moment is determine the length of the hose. In fact, what I might do is I might attach the hose to this. Okay, so all I want to do now is just put a mark on that. So now it's time to fit this off in its final position. Beautiful. It's not 100% attractive, but it's smart enough. Whip this up so that I can get the exhaust coming out in exactly the same position, or in exactly the right position. 54mm hole, that's a 50mm pipe though, so we've got a bit of slop in there. So what I was going to do was glue some rubber in there, just take up the slack. It's a little piece of like 2mm neoprene. It'll squash in there nicely. I'll glue it in there with some araldite. And then our pipes will just go. I've just got to slide it on, so there's no movement in that now. And I'm just going to slide them onto the pipes, screw it up there onto the tail valance, and then our pipes will be in exactly the right position, and I can do all of my adjustments, and everything I know at the tail end of the car is perfect. So I can move it, I can adjust it, tweak it, and the ultimate goal is to get them completely relaxed because there's heaps of intersections, get them completely relaxed and having them at that point there. Never done an exhaust in my life. It's more tricky than you realise. Okay, so I've got that timber inserted. Just I put three underneath that filler panel. There's just 3 Tex screws through one of the. There's a seam along there that I've. This pipe here is obviously in the wrong position internally, so it comes out slightly on an angle, and this one here comes out nice and straight. So I've still got a lot of adjusting to do underneath and cutting and welding and whatnot, but yeah, I'm happy with the location. So now for the moment of truth. I've got the exhaust all bolted up. That one's perfect. This one needs to be adjusted. So I might try that from the clamp up at the back of the muffler. You can drop it down. It's touching the actual frame. This one's got a good 20mm on this side, but this one's touching. So I'll undo that clamp and see where we go. I'm sure this stuff goes on all the time at muffler shops. It looks really, really good. So they're both coming out straight in the same spot. Right. Got a little bit of a problem putting these trims on because the tyres are stuck in these on these blocks. I can't turn the handlebars to. Darling boy, how you going?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Would it be too late for me to come down and try to get the boat out?
Yeah, sort of today. Can you come down earlier in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, come down earlier in the morning. Say about 8 or 9 and we'll get it out then. It's just I've had a full day and I'm about to go in and cook tea soon, so
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Guess we'll take the boat to Blind Light tomorrow.
Yep. That's all cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so because this guard was off a different car, remember that this guard had some front end damage on it, so it's a guard from another car. There was no Fairlane 500 holes for the badges, and these badges, the badges on the other side still had the posts on the back, but these badges, I don't know where I scored them from, they were all broken, the poles were all broken, so I've had to put double-sided tape on the back. I've tried to keep it as neat as I can, and so here goes nothing. Pretty close, about 6 mil. Here we go. I'm not going to edit that.
Oh, please edit it.
No, I'll get the text saying, "Oh, Jace, just in case some of the kids at school are watching."
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah.
How many litres are these tanks, Pete?
77.
Right. So 20 litres is going to be enough. That'll give me about a quarter of a tank.
Yeah. 20 litres is enough.
Yeah.
That's why I stuck in the XC and I still started on that.
Yeah. Even with the take up in the fuel line and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh, that's not much.
Oh man, this is like virginal. The interior of the tank has all been POR 15 with a fuel tank repair kit.
Oh, yeah. I've never used that.
I had it sitting here for about 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
I bought it for, I can't remember what I bought it for.
They always stick it in motorbike tanks because they rust.
Yeah, motorbike tanks, and the only thing you're not allowed to use it in is aircraft tank.
Yeah, it's in case it delaminates and makes the plane stall and fall out of the sky.
Fall out of the sky, that's right. Good diamond.
Are you keeping that in your video?
Yeah. Maybe not.
Sure.
Okie dokie, so I'm just going to make a parcel shelf. The one from the car was there, but it was completely destroyed. This is my favourite pattern making material. So what I do, I'll lay this over the parcel tray area. It'll just fold into the corners where I need it to. I've got these little magnets that I bought. I got them from Mitre 10 or Bunnings or something. And I just stick them all over it, hold it in place, and then just with the texture just mark it out. Might be able to put the camera there to show you what I'm doing. So it's just an initial pattern template, just to check, cut it to shape and then dummy fit it. If it fits, then we're good. So I'll pop that back in and have a look. That's the glue I use. It's just a spray contact adhesive, natural colour. I buy it from a company called Fleetwood Distributors. 20 litres, it's $100 something. It's pretty cheap. But I don't want to use my spray gun to put this stuff on. I'm just going to brush it on. Because I used to have a glue spray gun, but they cack out real quick. I'm just going to glue the edges of the foam, just rough. Try and cut your fabric so you've got a good 50mm of overhang. Just check the surface. I've got a bit of sawdust on there, so I want to get that off because that'll make a little lump under the fabric. If you don't have a staple gun, you can glue it. And the process of upholstery is exactly the same. Check the back of your fabric too, because in the shed environment there's little bits of grit and dirt. So as I was saying, the process of upholstery is identical whether you're gluing it or not. The first thing you need to do, you need to tack your corners. So all you do if you're gluing it, you glue around the whole fabric edge, the surplus around the edge, and you'd glue the strip around there as well. And you'd start with your corners. Glue your corners 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you trim the excess off because that'll make it bulky underneath there. I'll show you anyway. So don't take a couple minutes to cover. First thing, like I say, now you don't pull the fabric miles out that way because it's on the bias. It's got a lot more stretch, sort of on the angles. Okay, so you tweak it a little bit. One tack, and in the corners, just tack the corners out. So now you just cut your corners away, just on 45. The process is the same if you glued them. Now what I do is I just put a temporary tack in the front and the back. Once you start upholstering, then you'll realise that you're probably pulling and you're actually pulling that cover too far down. So I'll start at the front because that's the first edge. Now I can pull that other temporary tack out there. Okay, so one side's been stapled off. This side you've got to sort of roll it with your hand. And one side you do while it's flat on the table. And this one you're just smoothing it out really. It's important that you trim all the excess away from your corners because that's going to be the chubbiest part. You've got to get all the surplus out if you can. Because nothing worse than having a gap there because the corners are sitting too high. Job done. I think the back seat will hold that in place anyway, but I could put fasteners there, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. I might just put a bit of glue on there, but no, it comes on really well. Into the corners. It's a bit dark in here. That's nice.
Well, I got here a bit early. He's not come out yet. I came to help him with his Fairlane, I don't know, a week ago or so. I've got to move this bloody tripod. There we go, that's probably better. And I got here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I was late. But now it is 20 past 7 in the morning and he's not come out yet. I know he's up because we were texting before, so I'll just see how long it takes. Right, well, I've been here about an hour. Jason hasn't come out yet, I'm assuming he's still asleep. He's going to extraordinary lengths to hide wiring. Hopefully there's a little red cover to cover that. That's a single wire alternator, which made me nervous because there's no alternator light on the dash. You know, one of the telltales you get a busted fan board or whatever is the alternator light comes on the dash. There's a reason for that. It's all sort of modern electronics. A bit beyond my scope, but it doesn't matter. Jason doesn't like convoluted, but I've put convoluted tube there going to that wire because it's between the head and the back of the alternator to make it cool. And also the ignition. I've sort of tried to conceal it as best I can. That needs to be tidied up down there, but I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility. I reckon we can snug that up a bit, make it look a bit better. I've got to tighten those two as well. There's another one I had to put another positive feed in. So the way these work is that big red one down to the start of the car actually gets its feed, its power feed, for the rest of the vehicle off the back of the starter motor, and then it goes into the car. This is for the fans. And so there's a hidden relay in there somewhere. And there's another one underneath the battery tray behind that ice box. And the reason for that is because I've got 2 relays. One, so that the fan powers off the car when it gets too warm. By that, it's got a small capillary tube there, much finer and nicer than the old Davies Craig ones. And also when he pops the air conditioner on, the other relay goes, powers the fan, and I've wired them in such a way that there should be no backfeed from one circuit to the next. I mean, it'd be hard to wire them so there was a backfeed, if you know what I mean. And that's about it. So Jason wants to start it today, and I can't see anything wrong with that. I've got to make a couple of earths. There's one on that washer bottle down there. That brown wire there comes off where the old pulse washer was on that washer motor there. And of course the other side of it has to be earthed, and I haven't done that yet. And also underneath here, these 2 circuits, so that's the one for the air conditioner, that's the one from the thermostat, and they both have to feed into the fan feed. I've gone crazy with the gauge of wire because it's all I had. And then we've got to earth that, but I'm going to earth it to there. I'm not going to earth it to the radiator shroud at all. And that should, hopefully, work. It's a beautiful bit of kit. This hasn't he done a lovely job.
Righto, I'm going to let you do the explanation, Pete. Pete's been here slaving away all morning.
No, this is the thing, right? This guy decides, I want to get a high-performance engine. Okay, so he buys all this stuff that I've got no experience with. And then he gets his mate who says, oh, it might be 188. And I'm thinking, duh. But then the balancer's got 3 sets of timing marks. So I'm following the intake valve when it's opening and the strokes and all this sort of stuff, but we don't have a plug socket, so I couldn't take the plug out and look at it. Took the cover off, the rocker cover off. I've been doing it that way. So we're trying again. This is a no-brainer. Like, you set your timing up and it's going to work.
Yeah.
Except you with this, because
Except you've got 3 options, 3 timing options.
we've got 3 timing options and a whole lot of other crap to think about. But on my stuff, because I use OE stuff, it's easy.
It's
so
easy,
I feel
yeah.
a bit foolish, but
anyways, here's the moment of truth.
It's my fault. I should know more about ice ignitions. I don't know jack crap about them.
Oh,
Might have to just give it a bit of
advance.
You reckon?
Yeah, just and that's anti-clockwise, isn't it?
No, that's retarding it anti-clockwise.
Ah,
Because the dizzy goes anti-clockwise.
right.
So to retard it, you're making it happen because the point is coming
Yeah,
round.
that's
You're
right. So
making it happen later.
you're making it behind.
So I want it to happen a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Not that I have any clue, but I'm just going to do that and just see if that works.
Ooh.
Maybe not. Still not right, is it?
No.
Let's mess around with it just a minute.
There we go, the holy grail.